I think probably when I was about like 13 or 14 years old, in high school. When I look back on it, like I don't even really remember how it came to be. It's not this kind of thing that my parents put me into or anything. It was like, I think in grade 9, I did drama class and I joined the improv team, and I also did the school musicals and school plays. So it just kind of naturally, it kind of happened. And I just felt like I belonged there. I was like, oh, I fit here with all the like crazy kids. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, I'll do this. Sure. And then by the time I was graduating high school, I was already applying for post-secondary, like going to do some acting training. So it was just like no second thought to it. Actually, when I was really young, I wanted to be a veterinarian. So I was like big on animals. And that's like I was telling you, I had like a ton of hamsters. And I mean a ton because a lot of them died. I wasn't great with animals, but yeah, I mean, it didn't come about until way later. I mean, I've always loved to make people laugh and everything, and kind of, I think I've always had like an entertainment aspect to me, like especially when I was really young. My sister and I, we used to put on shows for our parents. We would get dressed up in like sing Spice Girls or, you know, Hanson, Backstreet Boys, whatever the popular bands of the 90s. And even with like neighbors' kids, like, you know, neighborhood friends, we would put on little shows and things like that. But it never really became a huge passion until a bit later. So I went to university for 3 years and I studied acting, and then I graduated, and then for about a year I wasn't doing much, and then I decided I wanted to get back into acting class. So I've been in acting class now, and that, I feel like it's really important to always be training and refining your skills, and it's always good to keep exploring, because like, especially you have to keep thinking longevity with this kind of career, because you're using yourself as your instrument. So you're always changing, so your career will always be changing, and so will your acting. So it's kind of, I think it's really important to be always training. When I was in high school, I did Oliver the Musical, and I played the Artful Dodger, and that was a bit of a turning point for me, because when at that young age, I was like, oh, I really, really love this, and that was like my favorite role to date. And then in third year university, we did Noises Off as a play, and I played Belinda Blair, and that was one of the most fun experiences ever. It's like almost like a comedy of errors, you know, doors opening, people losing their outfits, and like things just going wrong. Like, it's that kind of play, and that was so much fun. So I think that was also another turning point that was like, I really love doing this. So I met Brady at a casting director workshop, and I remember at one of the lunch breaks we were talking about like independent projects, and how I think, especially in this day and age and like our generation, because we have such easy access to like internet media and like all the materials, it's really important to be putting out your own work and, you know, being creative. And he was like, oh yeah, you know, a couple people and me were doing this project, you should come out and audition for it. So he let me know when the auditions were. I auditioned, and then it was just kind of like, I wasn't really expecting, I just went in and auditioned, and it was fun, and I was like, cool, that was, you know, like, it's really great meeting you, okay, bye. And then it was like, you got the part, and I was like, okay, cool, sweet, like, stoked. But I wasn't really expecting it. And all the better. It's, you know, it was a nice little surprise, and I had a lot of fun on the project too. I didn't know much about DC Comics or Marvel even, like, you know, the comic book world. So that was a lot of fun to learn about. I mean, I watched Smallville growing up. I religiously watched it, like, I've seen everything. And I used to watch the Spider-Man cartoon show when I was younger as well. But again, not really well versed in the comic book world, so this was like a huge learning curve, and I got to learn a lot about it. And it's honestly a kind of world that I've always been fascinated by anyway, and I don't know why I wasn't like in on it earlier, but it's so cool. I love like the sci-fi and the fantasy aspects to it. And I love that you can be swept up in that world, and, you know, the suspension of disbelief that, like, you know, of course this is not real, but you get so into it that you're like, yeah, it's sick, it's real. Like, you want to believe. I was honestly concerned with the fact that she's actually a redhead in the comic books, and I'm not. And I was like, oh, I don't know if people are going to be, you know, not angry. I don't know how they're going to take that, because sometimes, you know, people who are fans in the comic book world are really, what do you call that? They're sticklers. They're like, you know, they're very, very detailed. About all these characters is that they've all gone through things that happen in real life, but it's like in a fictitious world. For example, Oracle, Dick Grayson, and Bruce Wayne, they've all lost their parents, so they all have this kind of inner motive to seek justice, and I think a lot of people in the real world are like that as well, you know, even just regular day-to-day people like in the police force and stuff like that. So yeah, I wasn't really, the only thing I was probably more concerned about the way I looked, like the physical traits that they might, especially like the hair color, things like that, that they might be like, you know, that's not what Oracle, you know. The makeup was intense, in the sense that I got dolled up for sure, and was wearing like I never wear lipstick, and they, you know, the makeup artist, who's extremely talented, totally did me up, and almost to a point where I felt like when I looked in the mirror, I looked kind of more badass, which was really nice, because I'm like, it totally kind of calls the character calls for that anyway. And for costume, you know, I got to wear blazer, kind of more a bit more like let's say business sexy stuff. So definitely different from what I wear day to day. So the transformation, obviously makeup, hair, and wardrobe always helps with character, because it's physically on you, so you get that feeling that you're more more the character than before. So oh yeah, I just love that stuff. I love it when people are like, put this on, and you're like, yeah, I'll do it. The way I see it is, when you're rehearsing, you're like, I remember in university it was always like rehearse in all blacks, because you're kind of starting from scratch. But when you get like the costumes and everything else, it adds so much, so many elements and layers to your characters, especially because there are a lot of people in the world who do represent themselves by the way they dress, by the way they do their hair, the way they do their makeup. So it definitely does help. You know, I can look in the mirror if I'm all dressed up and have the makeup on, I'm like, oh yeah, it's Oracle's right there. And so yeah, I was doing research post the project, you know, like looking it up. And actually, after filming, I binge watched all the Marvel movies. I went like Iron Man 2, the Hulk, Captain America, Thor, the Avengers, like in the span of 5 days. I watched all those movies, and I was like, oh, I love this stuff. So I gotta go back now and do it with DC as well. But yeah, I just got so into it. Yeah, I fell really hard. I'm Florence Reiher. I play Oracle in the Nightwing web series, and when it comes out, you gotta go see it.